And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, President Trump's effort to secure your border is working. On Saturday, border crossings, they dropped to their lowest level in 15 years. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem brings us the very latest in just a moment. Also, it is official. Vivek Ramaswamy, he has now launched his campaign for governor in the great state of Ohio, the Buckeye State. You don't want to miss out our interview with him coming up. But first, President Trump continues to work at record-breaking speed. He's showing no signs of slowing down at all. Earlier today, he hosted French President Emmanuel Macron for a meeting at the White House where the two addressed a number of topics and also expressed optimism about resolving the war between Russia and Ukraine. Let's take a look.
I've been elected by the American people to restore common sense to Washington and indeed to the world. And I believe strongly that it's in the best interest of the United States, the best interest in Europe, the best interest of Ukraine, and indeed the best interest of Russia to stop the killing now and bring the world to peace. When I got here, one of the first calls I made was to President Putin, and we were treated with great respect, and they want to end this war. So that's a big thing. I will be meeting with President Zelensky. In fact, he may come in this week or next week to sign the agreement, and which would be nice. I'd love to meet him. Would meet at the Oval Office. So the agreement's being worked on now. They're very close to a final deal. It'll be a deal with rare earths and various other things.
All right, President Trump also continues to score big wins on the economy. Remember, the left, the media mob spent months and months and months spewing doom and gloom predictions about Donald Trump and his proposed tariffs, which are now reciprocal tariffs. They tariff us. OK, we'll tariff you back. Okay, what arena do you want to play in? Well, guess what? In response to President Trump's proposed tariffs this morning, a huge announcement from Apple. A historic $500 billion investment in U.S. manufacturing and innovation. The CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, says he is bullish on the future of American innovation. This one deal is expected to create tens of thousands of new jobs and a new manufacturing plant in Texas. God bless Texas. Now, let me say this, by the way, on the issue of tariffs in Canada. There's a movement, was in today's New York Post, that Canadians might be boycotting the United States. Now, I have a message to Canada, too. If you don't appreciate everything the U.S. has been doing for your national defense, and we've been paying the freight for NATO that you've not been paying, and that has helped your economy, and if you want to boo our national anthem because we call you out for not securing your border, or the fact that you have tariffs on our country, it's not going to fly anymore. Friendships have got to work both ways. In Canada, you have a population of a little over 41 million people, and the U.S. has over 340 million people. Now, I'm just saying, I've never supported a boycott my entire career. But if this Boycott America movement from Canada gets legs, then maybe I'll do something I've never done before in my career. Maybe we can start and support a boycott movement of Canada. Let's put the ball back in your court. You might want to rethink this idea. It's better off if we're friends. And while President Trump secures massive investments in the U.S., Elon Musk and DOGE continue to identify and eliminate waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption right here at home. An effort that J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon says needs to be done since the government is, quote, inefficient. That's stating the obvious. According to one former DOD insider, DOGE is sending, quote, shockwaves through the Pentagon. And over at the EPA, another $67 million of your money in grants for left-wing groups pushing Joe Biden's radical environmental justice mandate. That's gone. And over the weekend, Fox News learned that Border Patrol has now taken control, you got to admit this is funny, of the former USAID headquarters in Washington, D.C., after Elon Musk and DOGE exposed the tens of billions of dollars of that organization's wasteful spending. Great. That's money for our kids and grandkids to pay down our debt, create the new generation of weaponry, including an Iron Dome for the country, secure our borders, become energy dominant, bring back law and order. Not a bad agenda. Better alternative. Now, despite all of the work that the president is doing to make our country a better place, the mainstream media, legacy media mob, and liberal political strategists and Democrats, they just don't get it. or they don't want to get it. That's why you're seeing yet another reconfiguration of the mainstream media, and people no longer trust them. Ask yourself, do you really think it's an accident that Chuck Todd, Andrea Mitchell, Norah O'Donnell, Joy Reid, Alex Wagner all pushed either out the door or taking on reduced roles? Ask yourself. In another example, last week, we tried to have a conversation with our old friend James Carville. Now, to me, he's always been more reasonable as a Democrat. Remember Bill Clinton, Al Gore, they talked a lot about ending waste, fraud, and abuse. But frankly, the conversation was more than frustrating. We went back and forth about various numbers, and then he said to fact check them. All right, so we're going to do just that. On the issue, he kept saying, lowest poll numbers ever, anybody, any president in modern history. Not true. Got it wrong. According to the new Harvard-Harris poll just out this very day, President Trump's approval rating is 52%, 9 points above water. The poll found that voters are now more optimistic about the direction of the country since the Trump administration took over. And on every major issue, they support the Trump agenda. Despite the disaster Biden left behind, 38% now say the economy is on the right track, which is 10 points higher than it was only last month. In fact, President Trump is outperforming Biden on handling every key issue, including immigration, the economy, inflation, foreign affairs. He is in the 60s and 70s when it comes to government waste, fraud, and abuse, and reducing the cost of government and returning all of that money to you and returning America to a position of strength on the world stage. On the issue of DOGE, a whopping 77% of respondents think that we are in need of a full examination of all government expenditures. Guess James was wrong. But it's not just Harvard-Harris. President Trump is above water in the latest Rasmussen tracking poll, the latest RMG research poll. President Trump's approval rating is 9 points above water, sitting at 53%. In that interview with James Carville, he mentioned the latest CBS poll. He claimed Trump was below 50%. That is not true either. In his most recent poll with them, his approval rating was 53%. And more importantly, look at support for the agenda. Over 80% in the CBS poll supporting deporting criminal illegal aliens. 76% support a full-scale effort to eliminate waste and fraud. 76% support closing the border. Nearly 70% support keeping men out of women's sports and declaring there are only two genders. 65% support ending race-based hiring in government. 63% support a freeze and reevaluation of foreign aid. 61% support reciprocal tariffs. 60% support direct negotiations with Russia to end the war in Ukraine. Nearly 60% support cutting government spending and ending the ban on new offshore drilling. On the deficit, Carville was wrong again. He wanted to be fact-checked. There was more deficit accumulated under President Trump's first term than under any other president in history, he said. Okay, wrong, James. Let's look at the numbers. Under President Trump, the accumulated deficit over 4 years, more than $2 trillion less than it was under Joe Biden. Now, if you take out the fiscal years 2020 and 2021, in other words, the two COVID years, unnaturally high debt accumulated, the total deficit accumulated under Biden was more than double that under Trump. James Carville also talked about USAID and downplayed the tens of billions of dollars of waste in that organization, all for radical left-wing causes and what it would do. But DOGE's work is extended far beyond just USAID. They've terminated nearly $900 million in contracts, over $100 million in DEI training grants at the Department of Education, $250 million in climate and DEI projects, and much more. And they're just getting started. You know, if the radical left Democrats and corrupt media, if they want their agenda to be one of men's rights to play women's sports and putting the rights of illegal immigrants over the safety of the American people and spending hundreds of billions of dollars abroad on the Green New Deal, DEI, woke transgender agenda, well, they picked the wrong hill, in my view, politically to die on. I'm fine with it if that's where they want to be. The left does not want to talk about Donald Trump's accomplishments. They don't want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse going on in our government. And that's what they consider a constitutional crisis. You know, the problem with the left today, if you're asking why all these Trump haters are falling by the wayside all over the corrupt state-run legacy media mob, is because they simply hate Trump. and desperately want him to fail. He fails, the country fails. And this reshuffling strategy of these networks, you know, you're reshuffling the decks of the Titanic, it's not going to work for them. People have too many choices, too many alternatives. And moving forward, I can tell you that you better tell the people truth, like Joe's cognitive state, like the border was never secure, like inflation was never transitory. Breaking tonight, a judge has sided with the Trump administration and is not overturning their ban on the AP in the White House press pool. And the White House released a statement following the ruling. It said in part, quote, "As we have said from the beginning, asking the President of the United States questions in the Oval Office and aboard Air Force One is a privilege granted to journalists, not a legal right.